Okay, good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with a word of prayer, and then I will share with you some state of the school in person from the silo sort of comments. I am thankful you're all here. I promise that tonight is not geared to have lots of pauses where I expect like standing ovations and things like that, and we wait for it, and then we resume. I'll try to be sensitive to time, and so Lord willing, this can be the beginning of several ongoing conversations, and I'll speak more to that. But let's start with a word of prayer. Father, I thank you for this evening. Lord, I thank you so greatly for FCA. Lord, I thank you for the history of this school. I thank you for the beginning of the 2025-26 school year. I thank you for every single one of our students. Lord, I ask that even this week that you would wrap your hands and your arms around them. Keep them safe, give them the energy to finish well, and give us the ability to encourage them along the way. Lord, I do thank you for who you are. And I ask that even during this time, that the words of our mouths and the meditations of all of our hearts would be acceptable in your sight. For you are our rock and our Redeemer. And it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. So this idea of a state of the school address, or as we've also phrased it, an in-person from the silo, is sort of the fruit of a series of conversations that we've had here at the school, the board, senior leadership team, several of us that said, you know, whenever you have transition, one of the things that you most need is the opportunity to provide clarity. When I did that survey this summer to collect some information from y'all, the thing that was most clear for me is that what is most needed is a space for clarity. That there's clear conversation, clear vision, clear direction, so everyone has the capacity for us to move forward in that clarity. So that is what's behind the goal for tonight. It's just to give you an opportunity, in some ways even talking points, so that y'all can say, here's where the school is going. And also, 6 months in, people keep asking me, so hey Noah, what's the vision? Like, what are we going to do? Where are we going? What's the plan? I've heard this is the plan, or all those things, and it's like rather than filling in that gap, where people say, I'm not sure, I think it's this, to actually give y'all that information, to give you the ability to say, here's where the school's going, and here's sort of some things the school's working on. Typically when you hear anything along the lines of a state of the school or state of the union, it's always a little bit of a reflection on the past year, but also it tries to create a vision for where people are going, and I really want to be able to do that tonight. One of the things that I've said, the board has heard me say this, the staff has heard me say this, that, and I know I'm going to geek out in front of y'all many times tonight. I hope to be able even to let y'all see into some of my loves by even some of the phrases I use, but one of the things that people have heard me say over and over and over again is that I fully believe that Aslan is on the move here at FCA. I use that phrase intentionally, those of you that are Chronicles of Narnia fan, that they're like, I'm not even sure exactly what that means, but something's happening. Something is changing. And that change is toward hope. And I want as much as I can to provide that sense of hope. Because when I started June 1st, much of my summer, I spent the time listening. I tried to pay attention. The students weren't here. Most of the teachers weren't here. I didn't really have much of an opportunity to truly get to know people, but started working on things and listening to things, longing to get to know teachers. I still lament the fact that I don't know all of our teachers well. I lament the fact that I don't know our families well. I think I went through the roster of kids last, Thursday. My goal was to try to be able to match up all of the names with faces by the end of my first semester. I'm willing to say I have failed that. We have almost 400 students. I counted 291 of them that I was like, I know these kids by name. I'm not there. But that was one of my goals. I'm like, I couldn't get there. I hate, as the head of school, walking around and be like, hey, guy. Because I want to be able to know the students and to know the teachers well and to know you, the families. Because the gospel is a story of belonging. That God called us into his family, and if we are a Christian school, that the sense of belonging has to be core to who we are as a school. You send your students here because you want them to belong here. In the same way that I want to belong here, the way that I want you as the families to feel like you belong here. You chose the school because you've heard the sense of community. So that sense of belonging has to be part of what animates this school, that we embody that. And in sort of educational terminology, something that I want to be a core value of our school is I want us to be known as a place of educational hospitality. A school where we make space for one another, we make space for ideas, we make space for that which is true and beautiful and good. That we are able to encourage one another and welcome one another and to be an accessible school for our families. That they can have a lived experience of the gospel. So I do want to provide some reflection on things that I've learned, things I've seen, and then to provide a little bit of kind of, here's where I hope that over this next semester and year we can go. Just this week I asked our faculty this question: how Christian are you willing to be? The reason I asked that question is because we were faced with a pretty heavy concept, a pretty challenging sort of place in the history of our school, and I said that our faith has to dictate the way that we live. And the way I want to answer that question, the way I hope you answer that question is, this is not even a question for us. We are willing to be all in because that's part of what it means to be Christian. Our senior class this year, this starts my reflection, when they chose the theme verse for the camp that we went to at the beginning of the year, they chose a passage from Romans 12. They chose Romans 12:2 that says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I challenged the seniors. I said, I don't know if you realize what you have done. You've chosen a verse that most people don't want. Because the world does not want us to be transformed. The world wants us to conform. And for high school kids to say, we actually want to be different, I'm like, is that not why we sent our students to this school? That, to me, the very start of the school year, to say we want to be transformed. There have been many things this year that we look back and say, yes, camp. You have a good start to the year with a theme that I would say is gospel-oriented. But then we've seen other things that remind us that there is great cause for celebration. Obviously, sometimes people refer to sports as the front porch of a school. Many people doubted FCA joining the TSSAA this year. All the reports would be that our sports would have losing seasons to start out. Football was supposed to have a losing season. They had a winning season and qualified for the state playoffs. By the way, those are things that normally in the State of the Union people like pause, and Similarly, we had a sophomore boy, Cashel Kelly, who qualified for the state championship cross-country meet. I mean, that is pretty awesome. And to run by himself, too. Normally you have a team to run with. That is a tall order. Our golf qualified 2 golfers for the region championship. Our volleyball team placed 5th out of 10 in, some would say, the toughest district in the state. I mean, to me, even that is a shocking thing to see that level of success right out of the gate, which obviously, I kind of joked with KC. I'm like, your first season to go 6-4, like, you're going to have to catch up, continue to do that. He's like, oh boy. It's hard. It is hard. And I think sometimes when you start out and you see success, you miss how hard that is. To see our team do that. Middle school sports, record numbers in cross country, soccer, basketball. If you pay any attention, you'd notice we have a robotics team called the Falcon Force. And the Falcon Force, I don't know what's happening there, but it's like every single tournament they go to, they win. Like every single one. Come by the front office of the school and you'll see all of these trophies lined up with volunteer coaches and guys and gals who don't even know this field, and they're going and they're seeing great success. Plus, they've got really cool sweatshirts. Our performing arts program shined in Little Women, a production marked by beauty, discipline, and heartfelt expression. One of the things that even excites me much this year, and it's not the same as what you naturally see in terms of celebration. If you attended Grandparents' Day this year, Grandparents' Day started with a 5th grade girl who got up on stage and welcomed all of the grandparents into the room. This very same 5th grade girl was terrified about coming to camp. And it was a challenge with mom and dad trying to say, no, this is good, this is good. And it was a struggle. And in one semester's time, this very same girl who was overly timid about the notion of coming to a new school and going to camp is standing on stage in this room full of people she doesn't know and welcoming folks. To me, those are the kinds of things that they should fill your heart. I know that some of our students this year have expressed faith in Jesus. 3 of our students in the last month have been baptized. One is a 5th grade boy, Rhett Parker. 2 senior boys, Caleb Franklin and August Miller. August, when he chose to get baptized, he asked his Connect group leader to baptize him. Obviously, he has connection with people in his church, but the fact that we have these groups that meet every single week, that's why we do this. That when he says, I want to make a public profession of faith, that he asked his Connect group leader, Sam Donnelly, to be the person, which, by the way, I need to figure out a way to show this picture to you. Sam had so much joy in grabbing one of his guys' head, just forcing it into the water. It's beautiful. And that's one of those things that obviously winning in these sports and celebrating that, but to see kids' lives change, that's why we do this. And I think about these celebrations, I think about these moments of celebration, but I keep coming back to, and you're going to hear me reference this multiple times tonight, where in Mark 36, Jesus says, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world but lose his soul? We've seen celebrations this year. We've seen things already this semester where you can say, this is good. But that's why also I want to make sure that we see these other areas where we're doing this for those times that we see like real change. Because we could give students every advantage, every AP class, every scholarship, every accolade, but if they don't know Jesus, what have we given them? When I arrived, I assumed, so when I start thinking about this year, when I arrived, I assumed that I wouldn't touch a lot of things right out of the gate. I assumed that most of the things that I would be paying attention to would be, little tweaks here and there. That I wouldn't touch any big things, certainly not any sacred cows. What I wasn't anticipating is our staff, not just me, but our staff saying we think it's a time to begin doing some work on our vision and mission. Now, no new head of school, at least someone who's been around the block before, would say, I'm touching a vision or mission, because that's one of those big sacred cows. That's one of those things that you say, that should be a non-negotiable, that should be an untouchable. But one of my mentors in Christian education says, sacred cows make the best hamburgers. So listening to our staff, several people saying, I feel like we need to do some work here. I proposed this to the board, fearing what they would say. And the board said, you're right, it's time. We're a school that's 21 years old. It's time to begin to do this work. So after prayer, reflection, and extensive collaboration, I want to share some new language for you. A new vision. It's not new in terms of changing the school. It's actually aligning the words with who we are. So after all this time, here is and you'll start seeing this pop up multiple places, website and other places, but I want to make sure that we hear that it's not merely just words on a piece of paper. That where we're going is that we want to see FCA exist for the purpose of furthering Christ's kingdom by discipling students to love God rightly, to know themselves deeply, and to engage the world bravely. Once again, we exist to further Christ's kingdom by discipling students to love God rightly, to know themselves deeply, and to engage the world bravely. It's simple, it's memorable, it's theological, and it combines both the why and the what we are called to. And that's actually at the very heart of why we wanted to give you a little bit of a state of the school, to say we have been doing work on a new vision, and for that vision to guide us, because when I said that clarity is one of those things that's lacking, we need to have something that gives us clear marching orders. Here's where we're going. And we say, well, why is the school doing this? We need to be disciplined enough to be able to say we're doing this because this is furthering Christ's kingdom, to disciple kids, to love God rightly, to know themselves deeply, and to engage the world bravely. So I want to unpack this language for you, because this is the fruit of a lot of thought. Okay, furthering Christ's kingdom by discipling students. And in some ways, you could almost say that's the simplest articulation of this revised vision. That FCA exists to further Christ's kingdom by discipling students. And I know that there are a lot of Christian organizations that say, here's why we're doing this. And you have to have, any healthy organization has a clear why. Get out of bed in the morning, this is why. We're making these decisions, this is why. And this statement is not just added on language at the end of some kind of mission, where sometimes you'll see Christian language, and then at the end you'll see like a unto the glory of God, or for the glory of God, or soli Deo Gloria, which that's all necessary and good language. We've started with this. It's not tagged on at the end, because sometimes, and one of my pet peeves, is that a lot of Christian schools or Christian organizations are not that different from their secular counterparts. They've just added on some Christian lingo here and there. We're starting with saying that the purpose of FCA is to further Christ's kingdom. We're starting there. Not to further my kingdom, not to further your kingdom, not to further FCA's kingdom, to further Christ's kingdom. Because a lot of times people come to a school for, what do I get out of this? Well, we want to provide a quality, life-changing education, but not for the purpose of furthering our kiddos' own kingdoms, but to further Jesus' kingdom and to be unapologetic about it. And that right there is even revolutionary. By the way, I probably should even say that's not revolutionary, that's counter-revolutionary. The revolution was a rebellion against God. We're trying to see education restore things back to the way they're supposed to be. The great author John Milton said that the purpose of education is to repair the ruins of the fall. That's what we're about. So it's not really revolutionary to say we're furthering Christ's kingdom. Unfortunately, it does stand out in today's world. But we are seeking to further Christ's kingdom, and that means two things. We want to see our students come to know Jesus, like have saving faith in Jesus, and for that to leak over into their families and their communities. That's part of what we mean by furthering Christ's kingdom. The other part of it is a cultural renewal. We want to see Franklin and Nashville and Middle Tennessee, we want to see all of it better because of FCA. We want it to be so clearly understood that FCA is seeking this community to be better, that if for any reason we ever had to close our doors, there would be great lamentation throughout the area. That's what I want. And yes, Julie, you can applaud that. Because that would be what a Christian school looks like, where you're seeking the welfare of the city like Jeremiah tells his people. We want to see that. We want to see kids come to know Jesus. But we also say that we're here to disciple students. That's one of our three pillars. We talk about transforming discipleship. And even that, and I'll tell you this is part of what drew me to this school. That when the board told me that they did not have aspirations of becoming a mega school, that was like those like water for my soul. A lot of Christian schools, their enrollment is driven by capacity of their community and their facility. When I heard a board being disciplined to say, we believe in discipleship so much that we think that we have to be roughly around this size so that we can do it well. And I've seen it. I've been in much larger Christian schools where kids, if you're not really, really intentional, almost become numbers like they are in our secular counterparts. Discipleship requires belonging. It requires that kids are known. It requires that we're known. And we see the same thing in our churches, where sometimes churches keep growing and growing and growing and growing, and then people step back and say, we're not the same church anymore. What happened? It takes a measure of discipline to say we roughly want to be around 400. Maybe grow a little bit more than that. But even those of y'all that have looked around, we don't have capacity on this piece of property, even if we did some more building, to really grow the size of the school significantly. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. It helps us to be the best version of ourselves and for our students and teachers to be known. So we want to disciple students. That has to be core to who we are. We want them to, and discipling them, we kind of even said, so what does that look like? Being discipled means they love God rightly, that they love God the way Scripture talks about what it means to love God. As the psalmist says, as the deer pants for streams of water, so my soul longs for you. That's what we talk about when we say love God. We want them to long for God, and it's kind of weird to say this, but I want students to love God more from what they hear in physics class and what they hear in literature class and what they learn in language arts and math in such a way that because of that, it nurtures a sense of gratitude and longing for the infinite personal God. We want them to love God more because of what they hear at our school. We want them to know themselves, so love God rightly, to love Him like the way the Bible talks about it, to know themselves deeply. Now, of the three, this may be the one that's closest to my heart. I often refer to myself as a recovering Christian school alumnus, where I went through school and I did all of the things. And I don't know that I knew who I was. I knew how to make a grade, and I knew how to check boxes, but I didn't know myself. Because I often fear that the modern way we think about education, even if it's a Christian school, is more utilitarian than we recognize. What I mean by that is it's all about get this so you can get this, so you can get this, so you can get this, so you can get this. And it's basically education on a conveyor belt, mass-produced. Give a person knowledge and skills so they can get what they want, a job ultimately. But I believe that our students are image bearers. I believe that they're created to be rational and relational, moral, spiritual, creative beings created in the infinite, personal, triune God's image. And I don't know about y'all, but I learned almost everything I know by doing it. I learned how to be a teacher, not by studying education, but by doing education. Now, granted, I've read a handful of books here and there, but I learned everything I know by doing it. And I imagine that y'all are probably in the same place, that most of what you know today you learned by actually doing it. And yet, the modern approach to education is not doing, it's sitting and listening. Now, there needs to be a foundation. There needs to be a way that we hear things so then we can go do. But there came a point in our history where we said, doing is not that important. It's not going to help you get into college, so we're going to stop doing. We're going to stop having home ec, and we're going to stop having shop class, and we're going to stop all those things because that doesn't help you towards college. I'm not so interested in being college preparatory as I am in being calling preparatory. I want our students, now for those students, and most of them will be on a college trajectory, I want those students to be able to have every single access they can to flourish in college. But I want them to know themselves. What does it profit a man to gain the whole world but lose his soul? Now, that's a different way of thinking about education. And if we're going to say our revised vision is for students to know themselves, then we have to look at our program and say, how do we change things here and there? How do we add things here and there so that we can help our students know who they are? I would love students. It's normal in a lot of Christian private schools for them to have what you call a portrait of a graduate. Here's where we're going. I would love for our portrait of a graduate to sound something like Eric Liddell in Chariots of Fire, when he says, God made me for China, but he also made me fast. And when I run, I feel his pleasure. And if a student feels that God made him for physics, he can say, when I do physics, I feel his pleasure. Or, God made me to love and be able to do amazing things with diesel engines, and when I get my hands on a diesel engine, I feel his pleasure. And for this to be a school where we have tools in place to equip kids to know who they are, and then to be able to flourish in those giftings, and to not look at those giftings as plan B. To know themselves, which would require for us to expose them to additional disciplines, to give them time for reflection, to create meaningful relationships, to provide opportunities for success and failure. A curriculum designed around calling, not compliance. Lastly, of those three, we want to see students engage the world bravely. Psalm 127 talks about arrows being sent out into the world. It talks about a parent having a quiver full of arrows. We have a school full of roughly 400 arrows. But a warrior would be no good warrior if he never sent out those arrows. We want our students to go out into the world. But in order to equip them to go out into the world, it's going to require sharpening. And sharpening is an abrasive thing. Sharpening takes work. It's hard. It's stretching. So that when students go out, they can engage the world bravely. You can't engage the world if you don't know the world. You can't do it bravely if you're timid. We want to equip students to have grit and grace, to have the ability to do hard things, but to do that winsomely, so that their resilience, their perseverance, their compassion can be a blessing to others. We want them to step into the world bravely in their vocations, in their studies, in their relationships, in their churches, in their communities. Christian education, this school, should be the greatest place of optimism because we're looking forward to what God's going to do in their lives. Because the world needs Christians who are brave, humble, wise, creative, and willing to do those hard things. And in order to do this discipleship well, we have to do it the way Jesus discipled students. The way he looked at his disciples and treated them and taught them, he said, I'm going to teach you in a way that you're going to be grounded in truth. I want our students to be grounded, to have their feet on solid ground. I mean, you can't build a tall building if you don't have a solid foundation. And Jesus taught that way. He taught in a way where he says, you're going to be grounded in truth. You're going to be this grounding is going to be in the truth of his word. He wanted to see his disciples to be transformed through relationship. That's once again one of the reasons why I think FCA is amazing. Our size, that we're big enough for opportunity, but we're small enough for belonging. We're like a middle school or a high school with ideal-sized ecosystems. Enough students to run the programs we envision, but small enough that individuality is not swallowed up. Right now, we have around 212 in the high school. Long term, I think it would be wonderful for us to have maybe around 250. 60 or so students in the high school. Still intimate, still known, still relational, still a family. The last thing that I look at when I see how Jesus discipled people, so he saw them to be grounded in truth, transformed through relationship, but lastly, to be solidified through experiences. Jesus not only spoke truth, he took his disciples places where truth became lived reality. Students remember what they do. This is why we have Week Without Walls. This is why we try to create different experiences. That's why place-based learning matters. That's why interdisciplinary projects matter. I mean, think about it. Most of the lessons that you probably still remember from high school, I don't know about you, I don't remember many of the really, really, really good lessons. I remember the experiences that were married to those lessons. Which actually for me was a little bit of a hard lesson because I have historically put hours into having a perfectly crafted lesson all to look back and say they didn't remember a single part of it apart from the joke I told, or the picture I drew on the board, or the one-off conversation I had after class where a student asked me a question and I explained it in something that hit home for him or her. That we need to figure out ways to marry experiences where they can create, where they can build, they can design, they can fix. We live in a world where we don't fix anything anymore. We just throw it away. Something happens to us when we see a problem and we fix it with our hands. What it's going to take in order to move towards this vision is greater leadership, greater alignment, and greater courage. We're no longer an infant school. We're no longer a toddler school. The way it's been expressed at times, and I've embraced this, is that we're sort of like an adolescent school. We're not mature either. We're 21 years old. We're in our 22nd year. And with adolescence, you think about that time of adolescence, it's the time of greatest identity formation. But it's also kind of awkward. Your kiddos become adolescents and their body's growing bigger than their brain, faster than their brain, or faster than their emotions, and they're trying to catch up and it creates dissonance. Well, we built this building and I think we got full quicker than we thought we would. I mean, these bleachers, for instance, they're already overflowing. That's a good thing, but it's created tension here and there where our teachers are not even having classrooms of their own. They're having to share spaces. I'm profoundly grateful for Hugh and Lisa Harris. Hugh fought battles that I could not have fought. He laid a foundation. In a lot of ways, I see this sort of like the story of David and Solomon. Now, like Solomon following David, we enter into a new building season. And with building comes the need for greater clarity. Hugh Harris was a warrior. He fought battles to get the school to where it is today. The school was starting in 6 weeks. Do y'all know that? Have y'all heard that story? They started the school in 6 weeks. I would have still been writing a philosophy paper. It takes a different sort of leader to fight the fight that needs to be fought in order to get us to where we are. And in many ways, I feel like that foundation's been laid so that now we can move forward. Now we can build upon that. To move toward maturity, there needs to be greater clarity, and part of this starts with a new leadership structure. If you've gone to our website in the past, in the same way that I did when I took this job, you might have had a hard time understanding job titles and who does what. Some of you have expressed, I don't know who I'm supposed to go to for different things, even though the school does a pretty good job at times of saying, here's who you go to, but then it gets hard because we're used to so many of us doing so many things together. By the way, going back to Hugh and Lisa Harris, in the early years of the school, Hugh and Lisa did everything. Teachers taught their classes, and everything else was done by Hugh and Lisa. And then as they added on more people, it's just more people to do everything together. So now you have, rather than 2 people doing everything together, you have 8 people doing everything together, working as a team, which is beautiful, but it's also a lack of clarity. Our leadership team of Tim Johnson, Stephanie Radbill, Todd Harmon, and myself, at times we've run into issues where it's been hard to tackle everything because we're doing everything together. So one of the things that we also entered into to try to move towards this vision is we entered into a season of saying, how can we do this better? How can we have greater clarity? And so we have restructured the leadership team, and this is also a big part of what I want you to hear and to share with your other parents, other families in the school. We have a new senior leadership team that is divided into 2 parts. One part is student-facing, and the other part is non-student-facing. The non-student-facing aspect of the leadership team, one is internally focused non-student-facing, and so that's going to be our head of operations and finance. Some of y'all know Todd Harmon. Todd will be our head, so primarily a job title, but we're taking athletics, which historically has been under Todd. We're taking that out from underneath Todd, because even that, you're like, finance, operations, athletics. It's a lot. So we've moved athletics off of that. The outward-facing aspect of non-student-facing leadership is head of advancement. And underneath advancement is going to be donor development, so director of donor development, marketing, communications, alumni engagement, parent engagement, and admissions and enrollment. And Stephanie Radbill is moving into the role of head of advancement. And everything that is outward-facing will fall in that one place, and Stephanie will provide connective tissue for everything that is outward-facing to make sure that the work that Bobby Lynn does with donor development, the work that Ashley does with marketing and communications, that there's seamless messaging. On the student-facing side of the leadership team, one of the things that we noticed is by catching all of the things, we've not been able to adequately look at the academic part of our school. We talk about challenging academics. And quite often, school management tends to function a little bit like whack-a-mole. You have to hit things as they come, and you're not able to provide leadership and say, what are the essential truths of our school academically? What are the enduring questions? What are our curricular goals? How does everything fit together? How should literature look at FCA? How should math look at FCA? How should geography look at FCA? What is the FCA way of doing school? And so what we've done on all this student-facing, we've divided that into two roles. One of those roles is going to be a head, so all these titles are heads with directors underneath them, a head of student development. And Tim Johnson is going to be our head of student development, and he will be over every aspect that is student-facing that is not classroom instruction. So athletics, discipline, counselor, Week Without Walls, camp, everything that falls into student-facing but not classroom instruction is going to fall under student development. And then the last of those four is a new position, head of academics, which is designed to be the architect of a new academic program of our school that fully embraces the liberal arts, fine arts, and industrial arts. Our heads, our hearts, and our hands. And Dr. Jessica No is going to be our head of academics. Starting, that's also worth applauding. Jessica's here in the front row. Jessica, when we talked to her about providing academic leadership, she asked a couple questions. She's like, can I still teach? Those of y'all that have students in Jessica's class know that she is a remarkable teacher. She's going to still teach. She's still going to be in her classroom, but over this next semester, we're going to try to figure out ways to have her be out of the classroom a little bit as she's phasing up towards the academic leadership, because she said, I can't wait to the summer to start. Because if we wait to the summer is when you do a lot of work. If we wait to the summer, next year becomes the year of figuring it out. So we're going to be Stephanie and Tim will be sort of handing her more things. She'll be absorbing more. So they'll be phasing down the academic parts of their position. She'll be phasing up the academics part. And then entering in the summer and into this upcoming school year, she'll be our full head of academics. And she will get to still teach a class. I don't know if I could talk her into this if she couldn't teach. She's a teacher and loves the curriculum, loves the instruction, and she's a student of teaching. And we'll be working with our teachers to say, how is every single thing that we're doing, how is it aligned with where we need to be as a school? I think that will provide greater clarity, and then what that will allow us not only provide clarity, but like communication trees. For y'all to say, well, who am I supposed to go to for this? Well, we will be able to provide you great clarity. Go to a teacher, then a department chair, then Dr. No. Or it's a discipline issue, go to our dean of students, and then Coach Johnson. That's also part of clarity to know, where do I go for these different things? Who's providing answers to this? It's lovely when you have a team that works together where we tackle it together, but we need someone who's looking at things like through a straw, that we have undivided attention on those as we're working as a team. Part of this clarity through significant discussion. So we talk about a renewed vision, we talk about a renewed structure. So you start with vision, then you start with organization structure, then you have to start talking about alignment. Part of this is that we've decided for next year, FCA will be having and inviting into our school next year will be our last 5th grade class at FCA. So part of that, coming in 2026 will be our last 5th grade class. There are many reasons for that. Part of it is it flows out of all these other areas. Part of it is greater alignment. 5th grade is developmentally and philosophically elementary. Our program is intentionally designed for middle and high school formation and allows us to be more precise with our curriculum. That's part of it. Part of it is it allows us to strengthen relationships with aligned feeder schools that go through 5th or 6th grade. We want our families in those schools to not be conflicted about their school choices. We want them to feel good about where they are and not feel like I have to go to FCA so I can reserve my spot. That is not a reason to choose a school. We want our families to come here because they are thrilled about coming to FCA and they're thrilled about where they've been, and for us to be able to have healthy partnerships with those schools. This is not a step backward. What we will do then is we will add an additional section of 7th grade and an additional section of 8th grade. So our long-term vision for size would be to have 2 sections of 6th grade, 3 sections of 7th grade, 3 sections of 8th grade, and then in the high school, 3 or 4 sections based upon what we're looking at. Because we realize that even like, for instance, mathematics, we may need 4 sections within a mathematics so that students get greater student-teacher ratios. Because some of our classes have gotten pretty big. But what we would like to see in our high school, once again, is classes around 60. Grades around 60. So some classes, 3 sections, but some 4 based upon where we're trying to get. And Will Shipman is going to be running point on trying to provide us a schedule that makes that work. Have fun, Will. We also know that we are quickly outgrowing this space. If we are to have a world-class liberal arts, fine arts, and industrial arts program with room to explore, design, create, build, collaborate, we're going to need room. And that's one of the things that people are saying. So what's the goal? We are going to have to begin a strategic plan that says, what do we do with the space to the east of the football field and the north of the football field? Much of that is going to be academic space, fine arts space, and I do believe that we need some form of additional competition-level gym and weight and other facility for athletics. The fine arts space is of premium. We desperately need it. Our performing arts program has done a remarkable job with the limited space they have, but we also need things like choir, like a full-bodied choir program. We need more options for our students in performing arts, multiple different opportunities to get their foot in the door. But that's going to require a different sort of footprint than we have right now. God has blessed us with, people drive by all the time and they say, that's the coolest looking school I've ever seen. And it is. And building additional buildings is not designed to grow the enrollment size of the school, but to become a better version of ourselves. But yes, we do need to begin that process of strategically figuring out how we get there in the coming months. Because, as I said, Aslan is on the move. As I move towards the end, a few other things I want to both celebrate and then invite you into. Last year, or this current year, 117 FCA students received the Educational Freedom Scholarship, which, as best I can understand, is about 3 times the private school average. 117 students out of roughly 400, that's more than a quarter of our students received the Educational Freedom Scholarship. We have another 48 families that receive FCA assistance, and we would love to get all of our families access to the EFS. Todd has done a great job of, last year, I think that's one of the reasons, so we had 2 Tennessee State legislators on campus, sort of like baffled at how well we did, and I said a big part is because of Todd's persistence to make sure our families understood how to do it. We want all of our families to apply for it. One of the changes that we are making, though, is we are going to require, and I know that we don't have control over who gets it, who gets the scholarship. They're growing the accessibility of the scholarship. This year, 20,000 students got it. They've said that 25,000 students will get it this upcoming year. There are some that are trying to press the governor to go up to 40,000. We just don't know yet what that number will be. But this is a great resource to our families. Like I said, 117 students got it. One of the things that we are going to do, though, this year in order to ensure that FCA can be even more accessible to more families is that we're going to require, as part of the application process for financial assistance, to apply for the EFS. So if a family were to be awarded money, we want to bring into that the EFS award as well. So that gives us the capacity, because we have a finite bucket that we allot for financial assistance. We want FCA to be as accessible as it possibly can be. So that's going to be a change, and everyone is saying that they're going to do better about making those decisions earlier. The application is coming soon. It's January 13th, correct? So January 13th, and Todd will probably wear you out with information on how to apply for it. But that is a way for us to take the allocation that we have and stretch it further. Also, we cannot build this future alone. We have a gala that is coming up this year. It is February 19th, and primarily the goal of this gala is to promote our performing arts program. This year has been a leveling up year for our sports program, and we want to also level up our performing arts program with the same interest, with the same energy behind it. Bobby Lynn and Ashley are here. They can get you more information, but that is on February 19th. It's a Thursday, and it's going to be at Liberty Hall at the factory. I can't get into all of the themes for it, but it is going to be a wonderfully fun time that may involve like tight-rolled pants. No? Huh? 80s and 90s stuff, though. We want this to be a fun evening for us to come together and have fun celebrating what God has done at our school. To be able to look forward to what God is doing. He's done already. But even to come together to enjoy our company, to be able to celebrate together. February 19th, good opportunity for us to be together. Lastly, I'll say this. I can't cover everything tonight. A few people said, will there be a time for Q&A? Certainly, you can come and ask me one-on-one. But we want to hear your voice. The way that we are going to do that is we are going to offer 3 opportunities. 3 opportunities to come over to school, to sit, to ask questions, to hear more details, to join the conversation about FCA's future and our vision. We will be publishing those. They will all be in the new year. Because this vision is not just something that the board or I or the leadership team are building alone. We need you, our families. Your gifts, your insight, your creativity, your prayers. I had a father that sat in our office just the other day and said, what should we be doing if people reach out to us with questions? And I said, I'm not just saying this because this is the Christian answer. I really mean this. You need to ask people to pray. Pray for our school. Pray for our vision. Pray for our direction. Pray for the decisions that are made. Because we are building something new, something beautiful, I believe it is something that's aligned with God's heart. And movements like these grow when communities lock our arms together. So that's why we want to provide these opportunities for coming by and asking questions. As I close, though, I want to go back to this transition between David and Solomon. David, though he was flawed and made some serious mistakes, he was faithful in hardship because he was utterly dependent upon God. Solomon, though, got distracted. And I believe that's one of the dangers for Christian schools. Success can inflate pride, it can build comfort, and it can quiet dependence. Solomon allowed other things to nurture him to conform rather than staying transformed. My prayer is that we continue to hold on to Mark 8:36. What good is a school that gains prestige and gets better at being the best version of itself, but loses its soul? People that spend much time with me hear me say this over and over and over again. I want to see FCA become the epicenter of the change all of us know that we need to see in education. I think that most of us believe that education and the way that we're doing it has gotten tired. We're going through motions, and sometimes we feel like those motions are purely for the purpose of sustaining this system. But as we pursue this kind of change, this kind of desire to lead a reimagination of what education can and should be, a counter-revolution, what I've seen over and over again is that as schools become more excellent, they become less humble. They become less dependent. They become more comfortable. So that's why I asked you, pray. Pray without ceasing. That as we pursue a new vision, we will not lose sight of why we have this vision. That as we get better, by the way, we have to get better, that we won't lose sight of why we're getting better. Pray for our board, pray for our leadership team, pray for our teachers and staff, pray for our students, pray for me. I actually, at first, didn't have that there. I'm like, well, what am I doing? Why don't I say pray for me? I need you to pray for me too. We must pursue excellence with everything in us, but never loosening our grip on our Heavenly Father. We will remain a school deeply committed to Christ and His kingdom. We will sharpen arrows for a world that desperately needs them. We will send students who engage the world bravely with grit and grace. That is our commitment. This is why we exist. This is our calling. And it's my joy to walk this journey with you as we seek to further Christ's kingdom, to disciple students, to love God rightly, to know themselves deeply, and engage the world bravely. Jeff, you want to close with a couple words?
Well, normally I would say, wow, that is a horrible, tough act to follow. But his job just made my job a lot easier. Jeff Sheets is my name. I'm honored to be the new chairman of the board. We've had the same chairman of the board for 14 years, and it's just quite a responsibility. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about what the board does, so we're real clear about that. But before I even do that, I want to tell you, as I was sitting there, I was thinking, man, I don't know anything maybe about the process of finding Noah Brink. We started, we engaged a national search firm. We brought them in, and they selected 25 candidates for us. Those 25 candidates over a 6-month period went down to 12 candidates. Those 12 candidates went down to 6 candidates. Those 6 candidates, now we've been going for 8 or 9 months, we brought them in. We interviewed them one-on-one as we went through. Those 6 candidates, and there were a lot of really incredible people, those 6 candidates went down to 3 candidates. Those 3 candidates went down to 2 candidates. We ended up with 2. And one thing that was very evident, and I'll quickly tell you that tonight we only have 4 board members here because literally they were all over the country, different places. I'm in Dallas, I'm in California, all over. But myself, let's see, where's Tammy? Tammy, yes, we have Tammy Schindel, Sarah Frenzel. We have actually the wife of our director of the finance committee, which is Lena Bell, her husband Gary. Obviously Noah's on the board, myself, and then we have 3 others that are traveling. But my point is, we all sat in meetings interviewing these 2 candidates. And as we sat in the board meeting, and Noah was there, now I have a lot of children, a lot of grandchildren. I'm getting softer the older I get, in many ways, but emotionally. And we sat there, and Noah got talking about something he was going, and I was sitting next to, I think I was sitting next to you, Tammy, and it was time to say something, and I thought, I'm going to cry. I can't say anything. And I look over, and Tammy's like crying, you know. And we had that like 3 or 4 times got down to those two candidates, took them to dinner. We had one dinner one night. Wonderful, incredible guy. It was really a special time. He was sitting right next to me as we had Noah and Katie in that next night. And Noah was talking passionately about, this is not just for our children. This is not even for our grandchildren. This is for our grandchildren's children is what we're building the school for on a foundation. And I look over, and he was just weeping. And when we got up, it was just super clear that the Lord had brought Noah and Katie and the family to us. The Brinklings is what they call the little ones, which is very sweet. If you've read any Tolkien or C.S. Lewis, they called them the Inklings. So he had an inkling, and that was good. So anyhow, all I wanted to say is that the job of the board, number one, it was just super clear that the Lord brought you to our school. And it was a very different skill set that Noah had than the other gentleman. In some instances, the other gentleman, it might have been, from a board standpoint, a little easier transaction. He lived a little more local, all sorts of different things. But we couldn't get away from the clarity of this discipleship commitment. You know, you've heard it said that if you give away your, let's see if I get this right, you give away your privacy to gain security, eventually you'll lose them both. I would say from a discipleship standpoint, if you sell out to discipleship, ultimately, it's not instead of academic excellence, because with discipleship, you get them both. Through the excellence, you end up with incredible academics, and you end up with kids that can go be confident with that, filled with that spirit of power, love, and a sound mind, engage the world greatly. So it's exciting. The board, we have four roles really. It is to serve and support the head of school. Well, it's the hiring part of the head of school. We already did the hire part. We're not planning on doing the fire part. So we got that. It's to support the head of school, to serve him. I mean, literally, that's our job. We're, just so you know, and we only have our board hats on when we're in the boardroom. So outside the boardroom, we're parents just like you, grandparents. And our job is to serve. And there's a lot to do. There's a lot of transition going on, and there's a lot of service, both to Noah, to his team, whatever Noah thinks that he needs help with, he directs us, and we go and we help in that regard. It's to safeguard the vision and the mission of the school. And Noah came very humbly talking about the vision, and we didn't see it as a change in vision at all. We saw it exactly. Jesus said, I didn't come to replace the old law. I came to fulfill the law. This is love God and love people. You see, I know you got your vision. I mean, he went to Jesus, make disciples, love God, love people. Okay, that's a good vision. And so we are behind that. When he is talking, it is only because the board loves and cares enough about each other. He told me he said, I've been with a lot of boards. You guys, I can tell you don't have any personal agendas. I said, dude, we love Jesus. We love our only constituent, which is FCA, the organization. We love each other. And so it makes it very easy. Then he has us read Patrick Lencioni's book, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And it's like, you know what? You've got to have trust in each other. When you have trust in each other, then you can argue about everything. You can engage, you can discuss, you can rip stuff apart, and you can do it in an honoring way so that you can get to a place of committing to, okay, this is what we all agreed to. We're committed to this. And then, when you're all committed to it, then you can follow up and have accountability with each other and really drill down on what the results are because you want to make it work. So this is who we are as a board. We are serving the school. We are protecting the mission. We are sustaining the organization, which is code for money. I'll just tell you a very interesting fact. Y'all probably know this, but of the larger Christian schools that are around here that have the amenity, the staffing, the things that we do you realize we have half the students of any of the other schools? We have half the students. So just from a business standpoint, just think about your business. Just cut that top line revenue in half because we have half the students. But we are able to, it's incredible to me what the team is able to do and how specific and focused it can be with that many students. That is a blessing. And it requires a lot of work in a lot of different ways and a lot of sacrifice. And so y'all are part of that. We're all in this together. And the last part is the board. It strengthens the governance. We're working daily. Tammy and Sarah have been road warriors and going through and reading all the stuff that none of us really want to read crossed, the I's are dotted. We actually have a list that Sarah is shepherding. It is 39 separate projects. They'll probably be accomplished over a 3-year period, but that we are following through and helping in whatever way Noah says that he needs help on it. So I'm just letting you know, he's not the one guy from St. Louis on his own standing out here making these comments. We are completely behind him. In a real sense, we work for him, but we see it as a service to the kingdom and to making disciples of our kids. Wendy and I were talking the other day. We have 9 kids. The youngest, Judah and Josiah, are here, 14 and 16. We literally were looking at each other and saying, do you realize that, Judah's a gymnast who's in gym all the time, 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. That's not even anything compared to the time he spends here. He spends more time with you and your team than he does with me and my wife, or even his gymnastics coach. And that's the same thing for your kids as well. If you really go through and look at it, it is really important that you're aligned with the right school and that we're all pulling together. And what that means is we have to trust each other enough that if something's not right, what do they say that trust is built on character, confidence, and communication? Well, character, we're in a Christian school. We're going to trust that you have that. Confidence, we're going through and we're all improving on this path. And then communication, we're committed to improving it. All I'm saying is, no one does everything perfectly, but we're very committed to discipling these kids, our own kids, and building a foundation like Solomon that people come from all over the world and go, how in the world did you do that? Not for our glory, but I'll say solely their glory for his glory. So, thank you, Noah. Thank you, Katie. What an incredible sacrifice. Moving to a new area. Let me just close this in prayer with this Father, wow. It feels just like a sacred time being here with your family and with your kids and with the people that you have given the responsibility of discipling our children, our grandchildren, and all the generations that will come before. Father, we know that the enemy does not want us to be successful and that he will create division any way that he can. So I pray in Jesus' name that you will fill each of us with your spirit. In the same way it says in James 4:5 that your spirit jealously hovers over our spirit, desiring to fill us more. We pray that you do that in our school, that we are so focused on you, Lord, and growing with each other, that the output is disciples that are difference makers around the world. Thank you for bringing the Brink family to us, and we just pray for your sustenance